Predator: Concrete Jungle, releasing April 15th, 2005 to reviews. This game is very nostalgic for many, but very flawed for all. I remember when I was younger, I was a huge Predator fan. I still am. And this was a game I wanted to play desperately. I didn't have a PlayStation 2 on hand, and I didn't have the game on disc. And then I, got my computer, started emulating, started doing YouTube, and I was like, hey, let's do this. So I'm doing it right now. After all that rambling aside, I think we should get into it. Now, before we get into this, I would like to say that this is kind of a new style of video I want to do. Kind of hidden gems, older classics, games you may not have heard of, stuff like that. But that's just kind of a little PSA I want to put out there. But yeah, let's get into it. And I think the plot in this game is probably its strongest point. You play as an exiled predator who messed up on his hunt and gets sent to this planet after, blowing up a city. And then 100 years later, you get a chance to redeem yourself, go back, kill all these crime bosses that have started using the Predator's tech. They reverse engineered it and started making weapons of their own. All that kind of stuff. It's really interesting at first. And then it just goes completely off the rails in the second half. And not in the worst way, but in a weird way. So you get captured by the son of the crime boss that you killed. Okay, this is editing me. And while I was editing this video, I noticed a little error. I call this guy Bruno over and over again. Bruno is actually this guy. And the other guy that I keep calling Bruno is Hunter, who is his son. I also refer to Lucretia as the daughter. She's the granddaughter, so she is Hunter's daughter. I just wanted to clear that up before we get into this. Thank you. So then you break out of the son's science lab, where he's been experimenting on these predators. And after that, you have to fight some of these predators that they've experimented on and brainwashed. So then you go to kill the son, Bruno, and the daughter, Lucretia. And you get into the facility and you figure out that the narrator is the mother computer from Alien. And she's also the mother of Bruno, who has been kept alive by the blood of the predator. And Bruno was a weak baby, but since she shoots the predator in the face and spills his blood on him, he becomes a big, strong boy. So then xenomorphs randomly pop up, and they don't explain how they popped up. It's just, yep, I don't know where Bruno found these, but they sure are bad, aren't they? The predator sure met his match. Okay, so you kill them. And then you kill Mother. And mind you, this is after she says some freaky ass shit to you. Where she's like, you fathered my child. I only had one night with you. But I never forgot. Lady, I showed you your husband's severed head. And you shot me in the face. That was the quote one night stand we had. So you need to relax. I know, whatever floats your boat, but really? And then Lucretia goes to get her dad and opens up this big tube. And oh my goodness, he's been trying to make himself into a predator, and you're just sitting there like,
what the fuck is this piece of shit?
And then you fight him. And you rip off his head, like the Predator does. And then you just dip. And that's how it ends. That's how the game ends. And wow. What a weird game. What a weird ending. I mean, let me interject here that there's a little after credit where Wayland Yutani is formed, and they turn Lucretia into the next mother and set up a sequel. Now, the story overall in the game is the best part. It's weird, but this fits. The past couple Alien and Predator movies, they do some weird hybrid stuff. I'm going to be completely honest, it's a completely separate tangent. I'm kind of over the hybrid thing when it comes to Alien and Predator. It's just, I don't know, man. It's like, yeah, the Alien Predator hybrid was cool, and then everything started to become a hybrid. That's a completely different topic, though, and I'm going on a tangent. But yeah, story's weird, but not terrible? Now, let's talk about the gameplay. This is going to be one of the longer segments in the game. So, the game offers you a lot of different equipment. You get 3 different melee options, and you get like all these different kinds of mines, you get these different kinds of projectiles, but not a lot of options, if that makes sense. Things can feel really samey, and you definitely figure out which weapons are the best during the game, and you just kind of use those. So for like basic enemies, you use the maul because it gets rid of them the quickest. For bosses, you just spam the glaive because it just keeps them stun locked. And projectiles, once you get the smart disc, there's really nothing else you should use because it's just you use the least amount of energy for it, and you can spam it enough to where it does just as much as the plasma caster. And it's cool and all, but it really does make things feel really samey. It's not the most repetitive game I've played, but it definitely is repetitive at times. Now, on to other things. The enemy variety in this game kind of sucks. There's really nothing different about them. It's just some enemies have more health than others. But there are some varieties. The sniper enemies are ridiculous. Instead of shooting a bullet, they shoot a laser at you that just tracks you, and it just does hit scan damage the entire time you're in their sight, and it drains your health like incredibly fast. And then there's rocket enemies. The rockets just track you, and they do a ton of damage. And the only way you can kill some of these enemies is with like a spear gun, but that's more of a level design thing. Really just fight the same enemies the entire game. I also wanted to add that you fight these like robot mechs that are controlled by androids. They're called Ulysses, and they're cool. After you fight about 30 of them, they're not so cool anymore, and you beat them all in the same way. You literally just fucking cartwheel over them over and over again. Yeah, and then you get introduced to the prototype Ulysses, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm gonna beat it a different way. No, you just hit it now. It just has more health. Maybe if they did like a different variant of the Ulysses, maybe if they did smaller or bigger mech suits, I don't know. Other than the Ulysses, every enemy is exactly the same. Again, maybe with a different gun, but some have invisibility capabilities. And I think that's a good segue into another part of the gameplay. Your stealth doesn't do anything past like the 3rd level. You get seen by everything. Literally everything can see through your stealth. It is ridiculous. And it's like, I don't really understand why, because stealth is one of the really big things for the Predator, and it just is absolutely redundant past like the 3rd level. Now, the big thing I'm going to talk about with this game, the camera is absolutely god-awful. It is atrocious. You can barely look up. You can barely look around. The camera, while you're trying to do some of the platforming in this game, which platforming makes sense for the Predator, but in this game, it doesn't work very well. Because the jump in this game, you can't really control it, and the camera just makes it all that much worse. And that was some of like the biggest like, oh my god, I want to stop playing right now. And there were a couple times I almost did, because like the camera and some of that stuff was just so bad. Now, the core mechanics in this game are not terrible, but they would have benefited from more variety. You know, maybe some enemies you have to use this. You have to use a stealth approach for some enemies, stuff like that. But it's not there. The game doesn't really have that amount of versatility to the gameplay. Now, I think this game massively would have benefited from a dodge, a parry, or a block, because sometimes you are just getting overwhelmed with these enemies, or like a boss. Really, you know, you deal with every boss the same way. Would have been fun to deal with a bot. Maybe you have to destroy 3 power cores, and then you do damage to the boss, and then you have to destroy others. You kind of deal with everything the same way, and those mechanics would have made the game maybe a little bit more enjoyable. And also, this game is borderline impossible without finding upgrades or doing the bonus missions. If you do decide to play the game, please watch a guide on how to get those, because I replayed this game about 3 times. The first one is because I played them without it, and then I went back and got them. And then the third time is because I had a recording issue and I had to replay the whole game. So, all in all, the gameplay is not terrible, but it can feel terrible at times. 90% of that is because of the camera and just repeated gameplay mechanics over and over again. I think with the level design in this game, I can't describe it other than unequivocally just mid. Like, that's really all I can call it, because I don't have one that really popped out in my mind where I was like, oh, that was fun. I do have ones that pop out in my mind where I think, wow, that was actually the most headache-inducing, rancid piece of shit I have ever played, and I do not ever want to touch it again. And there's things like the boss levels are just little tiny arenas, and you usually just fight the boss in one spot, and it's like a waste of a level, I guess. The only one that really feels like a boss level is the final boss, because you chase him up a statue. Everything else just kind of is like, meh. For example, the escape mission isn't terrible, but right after that you do a rescue mission, and it's miserable because you're trying to balance your health bar, which is just completely getting zapped the entire time you're playing, because the enemies that you're going against are... There's so many of them, I mean, you can't really do anything, and there's not enough heals. You face all these bosses, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. When you're playing through the missions, the main objectives, of course, are marked, but on some levels, they just straight up aren't. And the bonus missions really aren't either, where, like, I understand that's a mystery type thing to find it, but you're not going to find this damn question mark on some of these maps. The main objective on, like, the dock mission, they don't tell you what to do at all. And I was sitting there for, like, 20 minutes just trying to figure out what to do, because it just says, find this, or figure out a way to open this. And it's like, what? Are you serious? Really? Thanks. And I really don't have anything else to say other than, like, the missions in this game are just kind of mediocre. Like, the arena missions are just meh, because you're just usually chasing something down. There's never really anything cinematic during the gameplay. And, like, the tower missions, I hated those. I absolutely hated the rooftop tower missions, because in certain segments, there are literally just things you have to tank damage from and hope you don't die. And it's really annoying. And to touch on the level design, when you die in this game, you have to restart a whole level. Some of these missions, you should not have to restart. There needs to be a save point or a checkpoint. I started to use the onboard saving in the emulator because I was getting so frustrated at restarting these, like, 20-minute missions over and over again. It was ridiculous. I think the thing that could have maybe saved some of these missions is maybe before each mission you get a little bit of a briefing a cutscene that kind of explains what you're supposed to do. I don't know. It just, there was so much where you're just like, yep, I'm lost. Thanks. Now, talking about the graphics, this is going to be a really short segment. They're actually pretty good. I think the graphics in this game are pretty good. There's surprising amount of customization for the Predator. You can get multiple different costumes, multiple different levels of the weapon, and they all look different, and everything looks good. The cinematics in the game look relatively good. I mean, it's a game from 2005, so obviously it's not Red Dead 2, but things do look good. I really don't have any complaints about the graphics of the game. I think the cutscenes and like the story bits are the best part of the game. That's all I really have to say about that, though. Now, I wanted to set this segment aside for boss fights because they're pretty bad. Everything is a gank fest. Everything is just spam the same button on the boss over and over again. There is absolutely no variety with the bosses, and it makes them feel so lame. Like, they are such a drag, because most of the time it's an enemy you've never encountered before, and they just throw 6 at you at the same time, and you basically just have to hit something with a really big health bar for like a couple minutes. And I really want to talk about like the last boss fight. The game does not tell you, like, why doesn't this boss have a special thing where you have to destroy certain parts of this lab you're in to beat him, when instead it's just you run away from him for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then these Ronin show up and you chase him down. That's all the boss fight is, and then you just fight him on a rooftop. And that's kind of lame to me. I think that's really lame. I wish that there was more variety when it came to, you know, fighting like the other predators. I feel like they could have done so much more with that. Or fighting the monster men. Maybe you have to pick them off one by one by doing stealth kills. But there's really not a lot of gameplay variety to do that. And it just makes these bosses feel really not memorable. This game would 100,000% be a smash hit if it got remade. And I mean remade well. I think if it was remade with gameplay that was akin to Assassin's Creed plus Arkham, that would fit the Predator style gameplay so well. If you added the free running segments of Assassin's Creed and the somewhat, you know, maybe not as free flow as Batman, but tied that maybe even with like the newer God of War games, I feel like that would just be absolute peak. I feel like that would just be absolutely just such a treat to play. But in its state right now, the game is, I think it's definitely a fun play if you're a Predator fan, and if you just like to play some of these older PS2 games. But please watch a guide if you're going to play it. Going into the game blind like I did gave me some of the most frustrating experience I've ever had with an older game. But I will say on the subsequent replay that I did, the recording that's being shown right now is my 3rd playthrough. Knowing what to do on every level makes the game a bit more fun. And will bring your playtime down much more because you're not going back and restarting or dying over and over again. So my first playthrough was probably like 6 hours. This playthrough was probably 3. It just, knowing what to do makes this game a bit more enjoyable. Overall, I would call this game nostalgic, and I'm going to put a little rating board up on the screen right now. I don't know if this is something I'm going to do for every game, but maybe it'd be kind of cool. I would call this game nostalgic, but not a classic. And that's about it. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for watching. If there's any suggestions you guys want, just leave them down in the comments. This game was it was different, because most of the games I've played recently have been ones I've really enjoyed, and this one was one where I was like, wow, yeah, I just played that. But yeah, that's about it. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.